Hello adventurer! Today a special video that is very different from what we've made before. We want to share with you some of the behind the scene of the project and our studio, because the subject seems to interest people, but also because we want to be transparent. Good, now I have to start by summarizing what happened in the last previous months. There is so much to say, but I will try to keep it concise and the timeline will help.
Currently, there are two subjects of work. First, the game and its development, where we do the coding or create the 3D models. That's the fun part. The other subject is the studio itself, where we are dealing with the administrative, communication, and financial stuff. Work on the game really began around 2020. Before that, in 2016, I had already worked extensively on the universe and its scenario. The first step is to think about what you want to do. A single-player RPG, or multiplayer, online, first person, or something more specific.
If I can smash things, it's a good game. But how do you keep your direction within a team in the long term?
Little by little, I began to decide on the broad outlines of the gameplay and started the writing of the holy GDD. GDD stands for Game Design Document. Basically, the document that explains everything we want to integrate into the game and how, like a technical specification. This document is constantly updated as the developments progress and is shared with the whole team. It helps keep all members of the team updated on the global direction and how features work together. In our case, we use the wiki, which contains information on the features, technical choices, but also the lore and story. It really is like the secret book of the studio. That's one of the first things that needed to be started to create a game. As for the business part, during those years, the studio was not yet on the table. I first had to better define the idea. At the beginning of the last year, in 2022, it was time to start coding. I started the prototype. For that, you have to decide on a lot of things. Which game engine to use, what are the most complete technical bricks to create, what tools to use. You try to put all of this together to make some sort of game work. And by doing so, you gradually identify the really difficult things to develop, and you can assess the feasibility and the volume of work necessary. I was able to do this thanks to my software engineer and gamer experience.
If I had to say what's the most challenging things to develop in Hudson Quest, it's all the server architecture, with instances and party management and artificial intelligence. It was also necessary to estimate how much we can optimize this, because it has a direct impact on the calculation power needed by the server, and if the server can't manage AI properly, we can create a multiplayer combat. So there was a lot of work on this, because if the server doesn't work well, everything else has to be reconsidered.
Finally, once a good prototype is made, you step back and ask yourself, is it fun? Is the potential there? Must it be done differently? This is the kind of question that we must constantly ask ourselves. But even more at the time of the prototype, because it's easier to change everything at this stage. Now that the idea is there, I ask myself the fateful question, does it seem financially viable? I started doing calculation, forecast tables, market studies. In order to do it properly, there was a ton of text and financial laws to read and understand. Not super fun, but this knowledge is mandatory if you plan to manage a company, and I slowly started to like this part of the project. Okay, now we are in 2023. For the business path, things moved very quickly. Before this year, I was mainly solo on the project, with almost zero budget. As the prototype was promising and the project was already well underway, I started looking for people to follow me. And soon enough, several friends and ex-colleagues showed interest and wanted to help out. I can't tell you who they all are for now, because they want to stay anonymous until we can hire them full-time. As we still don't have a serious budget, they work as best they can in their free time, because, you have to pay your bills. I met Cedric, who was very interested and convinced by the success of the project. He decided to invest his skills.
Hi, I'm Cedric, the lead artist and co-founder at Firewall Studio. I've been doing 3D professionally since 2021, and I've joined the project around March of this year. Since the game has been in development for a while but only by a developer, pretty much everything you've seen in the game is from the asset store. I'm here to make the game unique and have a recognizable art style.
Together we reworked and adjusted the business plan. We notably paid for a professional accountant who helped us validate everything during a few months. Then we decided to start talking about the project in public. That was in March this year. But at this stage, we have not really started marketing, just talking about the project on our own social media pages.
We've not really pushed communication yet, quite simply because we were already very busy and the project was still young. The priority was to structure the project and later get a community manager to deal with social marketing and communication.
So why introduce the project so early?
Getting a small community allows us to have the first feedback to be sure we aren't completely wrong in our direction from the start. If beginners, it can also help to convince future investors and facilitate the recruitment of talented people for the project. So, better start sooner than later.
We pay close attention to the feedback we get and will continue to share as much information as possible. By the way, thank you all for your comments and videos on social media. Next, we had some administrative delays. Of course. Particularly because there were difficulties in being able to transfer the rights of all the work already done to the newly created company. It was a bit complicated because there was a lot of very different stuff to transfer. But it's done! Since the end of August, Firewall Studio is officially founded. For most of 2023, the game was in pre-alpha. Developments continued, with some help from the new members. We are no longer talking about a prototype, but about a game now. This is also why we can start giving more details about certain features. More is well underway and the technical challenges and limitations are well known. However, everything is still quite raw, it lacks polish, and a lot of improvements need to be done. We try to avoid showing what is really too far from the level of quality that we are aiming for, like fighting for example. We haven't shown much yet, because there is always a big risk that people discovering the project will say that it's too basic and never come back, when we think it's starting to look good enough to be shown. Or we could have made fake pre-rendered gameplay videos, like few studios do, but we preferred the first option.
So, we've reached the present date in the timeline?
Yes, we are now in September 2023, with our business plan, the company created, good part of the game, and the first feedback from the community. So we will meet the public offices for subsidies and bonds to obtain some cash, so we can start recruitments and enter in full production. We already have several meetings planned this month, and we hope that progress will be made very soon on that part.
Good. That was a summary of what happened over the last few years. Now I will come to our short-term plans.
With the company created and the team in place, the development will accelerate. This alpha phase will continue in 2024. And yes, the release is not for 2024. Don't forget, we want to make a high quality and complete experience, and we start communication very early, so there is still a lot of work to be done. But you may be able to put your hand on the alpha version. I'll tell you more about that in a minute. From the moment the first financial funds have entered, we will launch a recruitment. First, members of the team who worked in their free time until that point will be offered a full-time contract. We also have a few positions to fill as soon as possible, for which we have already received quite a few applications. We aim to be a team of 4 to 6 people full-time at the end of this year.
4 to 6 people for a game of this scope?
We know it's not enough, but it's a start. So a few months after a more active communication phase, it will be time to launch a Kickstarter. We want to show what we've done more widely, to attract some attention. The money obtained will allow us to maintain the team as it is for a time, but if you have more than we ask for, it will help us grow. We'll give you more details about this Kickstarter as soon as possible, but we won't stop there.
In addition to the Kickstarter, it is at the beginning of 2024 that the future of the project will be shaped. We will need more funds to reach a minimum of 8 people on the project and have enough money to complete the game as we want it to be. So private investors will have to come into play. We will have to convince them that we are capable of going through this project and that it is viable. And yep, that's not an easy task. Our demonstration videos, the number of wishlists on Steam, and the success of a crowdfunding campaign are very strong arguments. So understand that without your support, we will have much more difficulties.
What if you can't find investors? Or if the Kickstarter fails?
That's of course a possibility we have in mind. In that case, we may have to remove the some client feature and reduce the amount of content at release. But considering what is already done, we are confident that we will be able to create an interesting game anyway. It simply affects the scope of the project, to go from a nice game to an excellent game.
Okay, so when can I play?
We can't give a date yet, but after several months of development, with Reinforced team, we are going to do a closed alpha test. The objective will be to test the server architecture, game performance, and key functionalities, but also to collect your opinions to change what needs to be changed. The exact date of this test phase will depend on how we progress and our fundraisings. We will talk about it later, but the second half of the year is more likely. Okay, I think I've said everything. I hope you found this interesting. If you have questions, please send them to us. We will try to be as transparent as possible in the future and do our best to bring you an epic game. So you can follow an adventure while we create yours.
To conclude, note that the Steam page is now available. Don't hesitate to wishlist Ascent Quest, it really helps us. Links in description. Bye.
Cheers!